Alright guys, Hayzink here, welcome back to the channel for another Street Fighter Duel video, and I'm going to do the second one of these tier lists. This time I'm going to do support. I'm a bit pissed off though, because I actually recorded this video yesterday and all the sound was completely screwed up, gone. It ended up being about 25 minutes, and considering how many units there is, it was a bit long, so I'm going to try and keep this a lot shorter, okay, and I'm going to try and see if I can get this done in under 8 minutes. I'll probably not spend too much time going over why the units are here. I'll try to condense it as much as possible, so if it feels like I'm not explaining things enough, trust me bro. Right, so let's go. Let's do this as quickly as possible. So I'm going to start off by putting 3 units onto this list, and I'll explain why, but you might guess why. I also want to put in a quick caveat just now. Not all of these units are part of the support class, okay, but you might see that they also appear on other lists. It's because if they're used in a support function, I'm classing them as a support unit for the purposes of this list. 2 of those units are actually going to go straight onto the list just now. Going to be this guy here, who is not technically a support unit, this chick here, who is also technically not a support unit. They are 2 units who actually are part of a different class, but we'll talk about them in a minute. And this unit here, they're going straight onto the list. Now, part of the reason I'm putting them onto the list just now is you will see these 3 units a lot at the moment, okay, because they are a pivotal part of the Flame add-on strat, okay. If you guys don't know, basically you start off with Honda, you go into Poison, you then go into Chun-Li, you then pop off add-on. That is the strat. It'll give you massive scores, okay. Honda is doing lots of things. He is basically going to be not only doing damage, okay, but he is reducing the enemy's damage resistance, meaning that they can take a lot more damage from your team, which means he is supporting your teams, okay. Now to me that is a lot, that's a big deal, okay. He's got other things in his kit that help you as well, but just that damage reduction alone to the enemy resistance, sorry, is huge, okay. Flame Chun-Li, she increases the amount of damage your fire teams are doing, your flame damage, okay. It's absolutely through the roof, and to be honest, at the moment, if you do not have this unit, you're just not getting the scores. Simple as that. Poison, she's a different story. She doesn't just fit onto this kind of strategy with flame teams. She is an all-round great support unit. She was probably in fact, I think she was actually the first summonable factional unit that we got in the game, and to this day she is still absolutely fantastic. The thing about support units, they age differently from like DPS characters and stuff. Really, unless some brand new function comes out, support units can kind of stand the test of time a lot longer than your more standard units, okay. So these 3 units, absolutely top tier. I don't encourage people to buy things in a game. If you want to, you can. If you don't, you don't have to, but if ever you were going to break that rule, this unit here is one that is probably worthwhile getting, okay. So if you're someone who is partial to maybe making purchases in games like this purchase here should be before any summons or anything. She is top tier. If you don't have her, you want her. Simple as that. So moving on from that, I'm going to talk about another legendary unit, and it's going to be Sakura. Now Sakura is a support unit. Sakura does provide a little bit of healing, and when we are talking about her being on your team, okay, so this is not in the assist role, this is part of the 4 units within your team. Unfortunately, Sakura is just not great. Okay, Sakura is a weird unit. She actually does a little bit of damage, she does a little bit of healing. She kind of does get this, I guess you could call it a protection mechanic, it's not really, but overall she's not doing enough. She's not doing enough to justify being any higher. I mean, in fact, I would actually, if we're running her on the team, I would maybe put her down here as a support unit. She just isn't doing enough to justify being any higher, okay? Now, I was going to put this guy on here, right? But do you know what? I'm not gonna, because he will provide support, okay? He will give you like a higher damage output and stuff like that if you're running him on a team. But again, if we're going to include him, we would need to really look at including things like Fashion Ken and stuff, because Fashion Ken's got a mechanic where if you get burn or bleed, he'll increase crit rate and stuff. So if you're going to consider Ryu a support unit, then you should really be considering the likes of Fashion Ken as a support unit, and he should really go on to a list like this. I'm going to give him an honourable mention, but I'm not actually going to put him up here on the list, okay? So he will, if you're running him, he will give you some support, but he's also going to be doing damage, so I think we should just leave him as a damage dealer, right? I'm going to leave him down here. So next up, we're going to put on who I consider to be the newest one of best buffers in the game, and that is going to be Gen. Gen is fantastic. Gen is doing lots of different things. He's giving you increased damage, he's giving you crit, he is healing, he is an all-round support unit, okay? You'll notice there's a trend. You've either got usually like a defensive support, we're going to call them, or an offensive support. So units that will do things like healing, increasing defense, stuff like that. And usually you've also got units who will do things like increasing damage and crit and stuff. He's got a bit of everything, which kind of makes him really, really good. Honestly, I will probably move these guys down just so that I can sort of put up a priority list at the same time, and I think for divination summons he would definitely be a priority for you to go for. So moving on from Gen, there's not actually many divination units that I would probably put before him right now, so what I'll do is I'll actually put him here. Now I'm not saying that you should prioritise Gen over Honda, okay? In fact, just so that I don't confuse anyone, I'll put him here, okay? But this next unit, I probably do think you should prioritise Honda over her, but she's still fantastic, and that is going to be Elena. To me now, Elena is the best healer in the game. Some people might debate that. It's up to you if you want to debate that or not. I'm not here to argue with you. Remember, Hayzink's support unit list. It's up to me. If you don't agree, that's fine. But I think she's great. She's doing some fantastic work for the team. She doesn't take up a slot, so you can still do some really cool setups. Like if you want to, you can have Poison doing the C1 because you don't need to worry about a healer in that spot. She's just doing a lot for you, you know, and she's also a buffer that can cleanse. Sorry, a buff remover, a debuff remover, a cleanser. So if you've got like status effects that are really affecting you, you can just quickly change who starts your combo and make her do a cleansing ritual, we'll call it. I don't know, get rid of that debuff that's causing you any issues. So if we were going for kind of priority, I would say that go for Honda first, then go for her if you are looking for units who are going to like help you push the needle a little bit. And if you're looking at divination summons, I'd probably prioritise Gen, to be completely honest. Right, so moving on from there, let's see, what have we got next? We may as well get out the road, another legendary unit. We've got Rufus. Where would I put Rufus? Well, as much as it pains me to say, Rufus, if you're using them in the right way, Rufus is probably going to go up here. Rufus has got quite a lot going on for him. You know, he can do increased damage if you're running a Thunder team. He can decrease damage taken if you're facing a Flame team. So he's got that whole, he can help you cause damage, but he can also protect you. He can heal, you know, and he can also do some damage himself. So he's not like a passive support unit that doesn't do much. So I'd say that Rufus probably is top tier. It's just unfortunate. I just feel like with him, I never got him because I just feel like with a Christmas thing, they should have made them free, but that's a personal thing. If you got Rufus, if you're using them in the right way, he is absolutely fantastic. He definitely is. Now, this is where things get a little bit complicated, okay? When it comes down to how I'm grading people, I'm not really grading them based on how easily obtainable they are and things like that. I am purely grading them on merit. Like, what do I think of the unit? What do I think they're doing overall for the team and stuff like that? So some of these picks you might find a little bit controversial, and remember, I'm only talking about how they perform on the team, okay? So that brings me to Elena. I once would have said that Elena was the best healer in the game, right? I just feel now we've got a lot of different options, okay? I mean, if I was going to put units on here because they are healers, I mean, technically you could put Suit Abel on here, right? But I don't really see... I see that as a byproduct of him being a tank that shields. But if we're just looking at units that purely do healing, even though you can get her to do some other stuff with her dance and that, I think Elena has dropped off, and I'm going to put Elena in B tier. And I know that's going to anger some people, but I don't really care. When you've got Elena built, she can actually be a liability, unfortunately, which is weird. You can't go back in time and fix it either. If you've got an unbuilt Elena, maybe you'd put her higher, but a lot of people probably have built Elena, and they've got her fighting spirit done and stuff, and they'll notice that she just comes out into the field and causes herself to die quite a lot, which is damn annoying. So for that reason, I'm going to put her into the B tier. I just don't think she does enough now compared to some of the other units that heal within the game. Again, you've got Suitable, he's healing and shielding, and I'm not even putting him on here because I think he still falls more into the tank category. But speaking of units that do a little bit more than just healing, a unit that's probably slept on, to be honest, is Diviner Rose. I mean, I could actually try to argue the case to put Diviner Rose here, because she is actually really good. She's a very, very solid unit. I mean, when you've got her built, she can do things like boosting crit, she can do damage, she's healing. I mean, she's doing quite a lot other than just being a healer. But I think I'm going to settle on putting her here because, again, would you run her over running someone like this? I mean, you can run her on the team with her. You know, that's one thing that you can do. I just think that she's maybe a bit slept on as a unit. I've not slept on her. I'm really starting to use her a lot now that I've got her up to SSS. But I think she definitely deserves to go in the A tier. She's a very, very good, very, very solid unit. Now, another unit who I think actually deserves to be in the A tier, and this is why I put Elena in B, because I just feel like these units are better than her, would be Summer Yang. Summer Yang's fantastic. Like, he's a great unit. Again, you could maybe argue for him to be up here, but he is a fantastic unit. He's not just doing his shielding and healing, he's also boosting damage and stuff. He's got a lot going for him. He's a very, very good unit, very solid unit, and happily all day long, I think he goes into the A tier. Again, remember, this is just units on the squad, not in the top row, okay? So this might be different when it comes to talking about where they are in the top row. Another easy get for S would be Fashion Chung or Athlete Chun. I mean, if you've used her, you'll know this. She straight up deletes ranged attacks. I mean, she does. If you've got her in the right setup, well, just in general, but if you're facing the right enemies, she just deletes ranged attacks, which can be huge. Manual players can find her a bit of a pain in the arse to play with because I don't know if it's her C1. It's one of the skills anyway. It's just so quick. It's really hard to catch, which is annoying, right? But she's awesome. She's an awesome unit that does so much for your team. Who, again, if I was talking about like priority here, I mean, it depends on how you would, what you need. I mean, I would maybe put him above him, maybe put her above him, because you're going to face stages where being able to just delete those ranged attacks is going to be huge for you. But I just think ultimately he's doing more, especially for bossing and things like that. So I'll actually keep that like that. I would summon him before I'd summon her. Next one, a unit that's kind of fallen off, but I don't think she's fallen off enough to put down to here. I would have originally had her up here, but for me now I think she kind of falls down here, although she could still be up here. But it's going to be OG Rose. OG Rose, most people run her for her tarot. Her tarot cards are awesome, right? I'd say that that's the reason that most people run her. She does do other things, like she can get some healing offer and stuff like that. But there's just so many units that you would want to use their C2 before you would use Rose's C2, and historically in the past, Rose was literally just a unit who was on the squad to pop those tarot cards. The good thing about Rose is you can still get that function by having her in the top row, but the good thing about having her on the team was she gave the tarot cards to everyone, and that makes a big difference. It makes her utterly fantastic in my opinion. I would say that I don't use her that often anymore on the team, just again because there's so many other units who you would run before her. And the thing about supports is, more often than not, you don't run too many supports. I'd say that the Flame Aid on team's a bit of an exception, but generally speaking, you're looking at maybe running 1-2 supports max with usually a DPS and a sub DPS, or a tank, a support, and a sub DPS and a DPS. You know, you tend to not flood your team with too many supports. Some games you do, but in this game, not so much. So I just find that she's not being used as often anymore, and I think that's why I would quite happily put her into the A tier. Now, again, I could put this guy on here just to kind of fill the list up a little bit, and I mean, if I was to grade him purely on support, like purely as someone who sits on your team building damage, then I mean, it's all he does, so I'd put him maybe here. But as soon as you factor in his actual damage, then he jumps up to here, but that's not what we're grading on this, so I'm going to just keep him off and have him as a kind of honourable mention rather than anything else. Now, you're going to notice here that most of these supports I've put into the S tier, with some being in the A tier. That's actually a good thing, because you don't get as many supports in games like this. Like, it tends to be the way that it is, and if we actually had a lot of units filling up the B, the C and the D tier, that would mean they're doing it wrong, because ultimately, once you get a good support, or a couple of good supports, you kind of can sleep on them a little bit if you want. You don't have to be like summoning all the time, because ultimately you're running 4 teams. Usually you're probably going to be running 4 of these units, 1 on each team, so you don't need a whole load of them, and if they just make the ones they bring out actually be useful, then you should be seeing them up towards the top end of this list, because they are ultimately graded on a different scale. And even within this, you've got units on here who are high for healing, but you've got units on here who are high because of what they bring to the team. So support as a whole is kind of broken up into 2 different categories. I mean, it's like I said, you've got units who are going to help you push the needle, hit harder, do more damage, or make the enemy take more damage, and then you've got units who are going to keep you alive, make you take less damage, and you could technically break the support list into 2, you know, but that's just making it far too convoluted. And there is a few units who stand out because they do all of this. They're increasing damage, they're stopping you from dying, they're making the enemy take more damage. Units like, for example, you've got this guy and this guy, they kind of fall into that category to a certain extent. So for that reason, I am not too annoyed, or I'm not too bothered about the fact that pretty much I could have taken away most of the letters from this list and just had supports are either S or A, because I could actually probably argue that I should maybe put her here, but I just think that out of everyone there, I'm finding myself less and less likely to use base Elena anymore, and for that reason she's going here. And unfortunately for Sakura, Sakura is, you could even argue about not putting Sakura on this list at all, because she doesn't really do that much from a support point of view, but she also doesn't really do that much from a damage point of view, and she certainly doesn't do anything from a shielding point of view. Honestly, most people just use Sakura as an assist. It's very rare you see anyone ever using Sakura on the team, and it's unfortunate. So I'm quite satisfied putting her down here. I don't even feel bad about it, to be honest, but I'm happy with that. I'm satisfied with that. I completely failed at keeping this video under the time I wanted to, but I did manage to keep it under 20 minutes, so I'm going to wrap this up really quickly by saying I am going to do another one for both tanks and for assists. Remember, this is an opinion based thing. It's how I find the units, how I like the units, and how I use the units. You are free to have a different opinion. That doesn't make my opinion wrong, and my opinion certainly doesn't make your opinion wrong, so feel free to discuss things in the comments down below, share what you think about units. At the end of the day, I feel like the one unit on this entire list that people probably have the least knowledge of, or the least thoughts of, is probably this one here, because she is majorly slept on. But I'm going to see if I can do something cool with her, and yeah, if I do, I'll bring out videos. Anyway, I've been Hayzink, thanks for watching, I'll catch you all in the next video, peace out, and I'll see you later. Goodbye.